kick things off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One of you guys like to?
The West Irondequoit Central School District acknowledges the indigenous people of this region and that this school district building sits on the homelands of the Onondaga of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. It is on these lands that we teach, learn, and live.
Thank you, Ms. Baskin. All right, first item we have on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Dr. Johnson, do we have any changes?
We would like to add H5, the impartial officer, or excuse me, yes, impartial officer appointment.
Hearing that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Mr. Bay, second, Mr. Shopful. Any questions or comments or concerns? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item on the agenda is public comment. In looking at our sign-in, we have 2 individuals signed up for public comment today. Before we get started, I will go ahead and read our public comment protocol. Community members are always welcome at West Irondequoit School Board meetings. If you wish to speak, please indicate so when you sign in. You may be called to speak in the order that you signed in. To ensure respect to the people and process involved, the board requires speakers adhere to the following conditions. 1, not make any comments related to a personnel matter. Written statements related to personnel matters can be submitted to the district clerk. 2, when asked, come forward and sit at the table designated for public comment, or stand at the podium for that matter, and state your name and address for the record. Your remarks will be limited to 3 minutes. And finally, place any written comments or additional materials you may have for the board in the folder on the table. We ask that all comments be respectful, relevant, and timely. Comments that are a restatement of previous views made by the same speaker, personal attacks, or allegations could result in the speaker being asked to stop within the parameters of the Code of Conduct. The board will not be responding to comments during this session, but please know we are listening. And the first person we have signed up for public comment is Mr. Burke. Mr. Burke.
Besides my knee, maybe my ears are going.
Right there with
you. Richard Barone, 154 Allwood Drive, town resident for 59 years. There's a lot of evidence showing there's public support to help the veterans. The only reason why that flag is there is because of veterans. Without our veterans, you wouldn't have a flag there. Gates Child Life School Board, about a few years ago, voted to honor and give gratitude to the veterans. Partial exemption on the assessment. Their survey to residents shows 64% of the respondents were in favor. In West Irondequoit 5 years ago, 10,000 West Irondequoit residents were informed of a veterans exemption would cost about $31 a year on an average house. At a public hearing attended by 67 people, only one person spoke against any tax increase, not just the veterans increase, any tax increase. Out of all these people, no one was opposed to it. So you would think the school board would vote for it, right? Wouldn't cost the school board any money, wouldn't hurt the budget, wouldn't reduce your taxes. As elected representatives of the community, shouldn't you strongly consider what the residents who have no problem with supporting our veterans, who gave up their lives, some of them, gave up their arms, their legs, their mental problems. Many veterans are still paying that price. You've gotten that information from a former general that I passed out to you some time ago. Gratitude is truly shown not by words, but by one's actions or lack of actions. One lady on the school board, not here, said, I support the veterans, but this is not my comfort zone. Oh, the veterans have a comfort zone when they put their lives on the line? That was an insult to the veterans a few years ago, not this board. And not a board in Irondequoit, by the way. So your actions speak louder than your words. Please don't insult any veterans with invalid excuses not to do this. Thank you. The fact that different previous school board failed to approve this veterans exemption is not a compelling reason for the current board to ignore this important benefit for the veterans. This board, 5 of you are new. You were not on this board when the board voted no, 5-2. Very much of a disappointment to the 800 veterans in this school district. I asked the school board to vote to hold a public hearing. Public hearing is required under state law before you consider to vote on this kind of an issue. Thank you.
The next person we have signed up is Mr. Schmanke.
Good evening. My name is Rick Schmanke. I live at 26 Oak Lawn Drive, and I've addressed this board before on the school tax exemption, but I thought I'd take a different approach tonight. I'm going to bring something to you that I'd like to have you pass around, look at, think about, and consider. I don't know if you've ever seen any of this. You can take it and pass it and look at it. That's my own personal declaration for being a United States Marine, served in Vietnam in combat, and was wounded February 23rd, 1969. Nobody wants to be awarded that decoration, but a lot of us were, and some of us paid the ultimate price for that award. There are many veterans living in West Irondequoit that have paid school taxes year in and year out without complaint. Now there's an opportunity that they might be able to get a partial school tax exemption, but they have to request it. And it's up to the school board to decide whether they approve that or not. So please consider that award when you make that decision. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barone and Mr. Schmanke.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda this evening is approval of the minutes. May I have the recommended resolution?
Be it resolved that the minutes of the October 17th, 2024 and the November 7th, 2024 meetings be approved as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Board, and a second. Mr. Bay. Any questions, comments, or concerns on the minutes? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay. I've been told we have one more individual that would like to speak but hadn't signed in, so we
I think
can.
there was some confusion, right? Yeah,
My mistake.
it was okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Daniel Perna, and I'm the present commander of the American Legion, Greece Post 468. I oversee a post of 1,000 members, veterans and their families of both Greece and Irondequoit. I am also a West Irondequoit resident. The services we veterans, as well as others who went before us, come at a great cost to many. Some of our warriors and their families have paid a much steeper price than others. Some have given their lives and their ultimate sacrifice as we honor their memory. During the last Veterans Day weekend, I spoke on 2 occasions, honoring our veterans, living and deceased, honoring their services and sacrifice. There are some of us who were seriously injured, coming home from the wars, who continue to make financial sacrifices. Many times, strangers will say to us, "Thank you for your service," or "Thank you for your sacrifice." Today, I'm asking you, members of the school board agenda committee, to agree to place the veterans' partial exemption for discussion on the agenda to the next available school board meeting, either in a regular business meeting or a workshop meeting. Thank you.
Before you step down, can you just state your full name and address so that we have it for the record, please?
My name's Daniel L. Perna. I live at 140 Brookview Drive, 14617.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And sorry for the mistake, I did not realize that. Okay, resuming with the agenda, the next item on the agenda we have is good news. Turn it over to our student representative.
Hello, I'm Tia Conley, and this is our good news. WRROC/TV meteorologist James Gilbert recently visited with 4th graders at Irondequoit Middle School. They were riveted by his presentation and information. Their group picture was also featured on Channel 8. Ben Loomis and Isaac Nielsen qualified for the 2025 DECA International Career Development Conference in Orlando. They finished first in the state, second in the North Atlantic region, and 17th in the country in a virtual business challenge. The ISS juniors also were featured on WROC-TV Channel 8. Seniors James Simpson was selected from the Hofstein Youth Symphonic Orchestra, the highest level youth orchestra in Hofstein's 4-tier program. Jane plays the flute. On Valentine's Day, senior Abby On Veterans Day, senior Abby Mysak and freshman Evan Spatala played taps at the town's annual ceremony. Irondequoit DECA club leader also did fall cleanup at the Sunset House, and Tri-M Music Honors Society students made 16 lasagnas for the Open Door mission. What a month for IHS cross country. The girls finished 5th in the state in Class A after capturing their first Section 5 championship since 1982, and the Eagles also won the Monroe Community Crown. Seniors Lizzie Tyler was the top Section 5 finisher in 3rd. On the boys' side, senior Luke Simpson won the Section 5 Class A title and finished 24th at states. He also was named Section B's Class A sportsmanship winner at the state meeting. Our girls runner were Katie Boutman, Kayla Holiday, Kara Lavec, Mary Grace Joy, Audrey Smith, and Lizzie Taylor. Junior Brenda Scott repeated as Section 5 Class B diving championship and will compete in Friday's state championship at Webster Outdoor Center. 7 IHS students athletes were honored at the ceremony and signed NCAA national letters of intent to play Division I and Division II athletes. Congratulations to lacrosse players Emmeline Francis, Miles Leva, Audrey Skoll, and Celia Young. Softball players Abby Ross, soccer players Casey Keller, and diver George Ligozi. Seniors Ethan Roydes, Aaliyah Boskirk, and Jack Debs are among 34,000 students nationwide to earn the honor of being commended students in the National Merit Program for Excellence on the PSAT/National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. 8th grader Madeline Phillips and 7th grader Lily Lehman, along with director Mr. Rob Line, were on Fox Rochester's morning show to promote the Dake High School musical Frozen Jr. that nearly sold out 3 of its 4 shows. And that concludes the good news report.
Thank you very much. All right, the next item we have on the agenda is the report by the superintendent, Dr. Johnson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sullivan. So each month, my goal is to bring a group of students or staff in for our report, just to celebrate the great work happening in our schools. So today, we have a group of friends and some staff from our unified program here in the district. And it's a very special recognition because they earned a major award this year. So back in September, out of the blue, I received a letter that was forwarded to me by some of the coaches, notifying us that we had earned the designation of a unified champion school, receiving the national banner recognition. So if that's something that's new to you, I can explain a little bit about that. This is something that recognizes schools who demonstrate the highest commitment to inclusion by meeting 10 standards of excellence. The standards were developed by a panel of leaders from Special Olympics and the education community nationally. The primary activities within these standards include Special Olympics unified sports, inclusive youth leadership, and whole school engagement. To achieve banner status, unified champion schools must also demonstrate that they are self-sustainable and have a plan in place to continue these activities in the future. And so tonight we're here to congratulate our unified program for earning this very prestigious status. There were 1 in 13 schools this year to earn this. So before I invite them up, let's just give them all a round of applause for that. I'd love to invite the coaches up. We have Mrs. Maroney, we have Mrs. Seeley, Mr. Lancy. If you could please come up here, we'll have you come on up, and I'll have you introduce your athletes that are here with you tonight.
So we brought a couple athletes and a couple of peer partners. And for people who don't know how our program is involved, we run through 2 major sports. We run through unified bowling and unified basketball. We also run a unified phys ed program in our youth advocate club. And it's not us who does the work. The kids do all the work, and they make it enjoyable for every student who's involved. So I'm going to start with our peer partners first. We have Abby Ross. And then our unified athletes, and each of these people, this is just a small subgroup. These 3 are involved in everything that we do. So I have Sam Baumgartner, Gabby Howard, and Xavier Cross. And you see Xavier is sporting our medal from Unified Bowling this year. We got 2nd place in our division, so congratulations.
So to recognize your achievement here, the Board of Education has a special certificate for the 3 coaches, and we're going to send the students and the peer partners certificates later on. But I just will very quickly read this. It says, the Western Irondequoit Central School District recognizes the Unified Sports Program for the passion, determination, and care which led to being named a Special Olympics National Banner Unified Champion School. Thank you for making our district a place where all students are included to build friendships and a sense of belonging. So we appreciate our giving this to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you for coming.
Congratulations. Congratulations. So can we get a quick picture before we sit down? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Get you in here, sir? Mr. DeVeronica would be very upset. No, it's about the key with you. Ms. Warnable? You know, I'm gonna go over in the middle. Sure. You guys want to get a picture? Go ahead. Parents, come on up.
Really chairs.
Great Kodak moment. Sure, you want to come on? Closer? Absolutely.
Yeah, but he generally doesn't.
I took a view there, Sam. Well, congratulations. Thank you. Okay, so a little more about what's going on in the district. So we kind of set the stage this year when they opened up the year with the staff, and we had a guest speaker come in. One of the things that the guest speaker really instilled upon us is making sure that every day we keep showing up for our students. And when we do that, our aim is to show up on full, something that he defined as coming as enthusiastic and ready to really support and care for our kids, curious and inspired. So for part of my report, each month I like to just start out and show some of the great things that are happening across the district and just really highlight our people in this way. So what you see up here, you can see our unified bowling team over there, which we just met some of the members. As you heard, they were able to win a second place here recently for the fall season, so congratulations to them. Over to the left there, you see the Rogers Middle School Builders Club. So they were able to have donated 729 items for the Irondequoit food cupboard. So we just want to say thank you to them. They delivered it personally. Down in the left-hand corner, some of you may have been able to attend the recent Frozen performances. They were tremendous. I have a third grader, and one of the special things that they do now is they go around leading up to the performances, and some of the kids will go in and present to the K through 3 students. And my son, he came home and he just had to go, and he hasn't sat through a full musical, so we went there. Said, hey, look, buddy, if you want to leave in intermission, we can. I leaned over, I asked him, he said, no way, Jose. So he was and we had never seen the movie, so I just continue to hear rave reviews about that, so congratulations to everybody that was involved. In the middle there, we had a post-secondary planning night held by it was hosted by the high school's Career Connections and College and Career Center. So just want to highlight the work that's happening, not only to help to inform our families and students about their college choices, but also their career pathways. So there's a lot of technical options there as well, and apprenticeships. So a really diverse set of offerings for people. And then right down there on the right is our very own student representatives and their last conversation with some Rogers Middle School students, and it's going to be part of the report tonight. So they're being some fantastic ambassadors on behalf of the Board of Education. So a couple of examples of what's going on, and of course this past week we celebrated School-Related Professionals Day. We have hundreds of professionals across the district that support our students and staff in countless ways. You can see a few here. Our security staff, which, you think security sometimes, think about maybe some people that are there to keep everybody safe, which is very true. Safety is number one. But our folks, one of the things I really love about them and want to celebrate is they make connections. They build connections with the people. So our aim is for them to be approachable for students and for the community, to really help them to see them as an asset and a person that they can rely on to help to support them. Obviously, our food service are a big component of that. Our clerical staff, we have our grounds, our mechanics, everybody that helps us clean and make our schools sanitized and ready to go for the day. So just want to make sure that we just thank them and celebrate them for all the work that they do that often goes unseen. But it certainly makes a huge difference. So a few updates from across the district. Just want to report back to the Board of Education, thanks to the District Curriculum Council. We had a great discussion recently just to re-examine our core commitments as a district, which were adopted back in 2018. So it's been a little bit of time here. And their group took a look at those and really held them up against the work that we've been doing since then. A lot of that around culturally responsive and sustaining education and some of the other work. They were looking for some of the ways that maybe we could expand upon those. And so they provided some feedback, which is being discussed, and we hope to have that back to you soon, okay, for your discussion. One of our goals this year, I think everybody's aware that there are state requirements for our instructional buildings to hold safety drills throughout the year. There are no requirements for our non-instructional buildings, but it's something that our folks have been asking for. So thanks to Chris Scheller, our Director of Safety and Security, he was able to orchestrate those this year and kick those off. So we held our first district office lockdown drill recently, which the staff really appreciated, and that was very successful. So we're going to continue that and make that part of our practice. You had a chance to talk with the ILO group recently around strategic planning, so kind of that second edition of a strategic plan. We were able to meet with them recently and just do some of the data planning, talk about some of the things that they wanted to gather, hear more of some of our ideas, and kind of plan out the year as far as our engagement. So talked about putting together a steering committee and some of those other items that they had spoke to you about. And one of the things that I'll relay back to you is they will be seeking Board of Education representatives on that committee, so we'll get back to you about that. Our communications department has done a fabulous job in communicating around our upcoming Promise Project 2027 vote, so that's December 10th. There was a newsletter that went home to families. We have a postcard ready, and we're going to be shooting a video coming up. And we have a couple of people that are going to be the voiceover in that video here sitting at the table, so I appreciate their support as well. So in the His Common, which was the autocorrect, it should be the IHS comments, so don't looking for the His Comments. You know, this was a conversation that started, I think it was at least a year ago, you know, really since the Cooper Dell had closed their doors, where students were looking for a place after hours to really congregate, hang out, socialize, but you know, the highest priority right now is for students that are here after school for activities, you know, and have to extend their day. So we've been doing some thinking about that, had some conversations. We're setting up a study hall after school, after hours, so that's in the works, and we should be kicking that off within the next couple of weeks. And part of that is making sure that students want food. They wanted food, so that they have access to that. That was one of the #1 priorities when we canvassed them, is there's got to be food involved. So we were able to secure some vending machines. Those are being operated by our food service, so they're now in the Commons, and I went by there the other day. They were empty after one day, so we're being used. But they were recharged today, which is great, right? Students are shaking their heads yes. So I think those have been a great addition. And one of the caveats, you know, we have a lot of groups at after hours. They, one of their most significant fundraisers is for concessions. They're like the musical or, you know, sporting events, different things like that. So we made an agreement that these will be shut off during those hours. So after that study period ends, these will be shut off for the rest of the night. And just a reminder that next week on Tuesday we have a parent-teacher conference day. So a little different this year. We committed to doing a conference day across the district. You know, we've historically done one at the elementary grades, and last year we piloted doing them at the secondary level, and they were really successful. A lot of positive feedback regarding those. So thanks to our instructional team and our staff in the buildings. That's going to happen again next week. So they're scheduling conferences across the board with families would come in and talk about the progress so far in the year. So we're looking forward to that. I just want to report back on that and just make note of that. And at this point, I'll answer any questions. And I have one additional special guest here tonight that I want to introduce before we move forward. But any questions before we move?
How later, the afternoon study hall, how late is that?
So we're looking at 5 p.m., you know, between 4:30 and 5 p.m. Yeah, so looking at that second practice there. Yeah.
Just two comments.
Yeah.
First of all, thanks for bringing the student groups in. It's great to, you know, that new idea that we had, that kind of helped us lead, but it's really great to be able to celebrate our students and our staff that support our students. So thanks for that. And then just a question to Mr. Brennan. So I don't know if some people remember when they went to high school here, but in the small cafeteria, they used to have a thing called a Fruit-O-Matic. And they used to dispense apples, so I'm hoping that when you find one.
They are healthy snacks.
Whenever I was late to class, I would buy an apple and then bring it to the teacher.
Sorry, I don't remember that.
I'll send you a picture of it. You can find them on eBay. They were a Fruit-O-Matic.
That's good.
No, I was eating cinnamon donuts.
Yeah.
That's what I was eating.
Any other questions before I bring up a special guest? So recognizing that we have an agenda item of new business to approve, to consider the approval of a new therapy dog in the district. Not knowing how long the rest of the presentations will take, I thought I'd pause right now and call up one of the members of the Bay family here. We have Gunnar Bay with us. Gunnar is seeking to be our newest addition to our fleet of therapy dogs in the district, fresh off the heels of his training. Super excited to be with us. Trained by Mrs. Bay, one of our fabulous teachers at the Rogers Middle School. So we do have a special gift courtesy of our Office of Instruction for Gunnar and his handler. So we'll give that to you, Mrs. Bay.
Thank you so much.
Just want to say thank you in advance for all the work that you put into training Gunnar. We're certainly happy to welcome Gunnar aboard.
He's excited. He'll be on the Rogers Morning Show tomorrow morning. Very excited. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I didn't know how long some of these presentations will take. So.
All right, well, thank you. All right.
But if you see these animals around the district, you know, people just melt with these animals. They're just fantastic. I mean, they absolutely change the mood of the buildings and the classrooms when they come in. So, and these are, the handlers do this, really, they step up independently. You know, there's really, you know, there's nothing that the district does to prompt that. You do that really out of the love of our students and staff and take that initiative. So we couldn't be more grateful because it's been a tremendous addition to the district. So we're thrilled that
Thank you.
that's going to bring that on board.
All right.
Okay?
You ready?
So again, we can say a few words again if once we get to that agenda item, but knowing it, we got a couple presentations to go through between now and then. I want to make sure we recognize Gunnar.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for that great report. The next item we have on the agenda is our student representative report.
Thank you. So we visited Rogers. From what the students said, it's a very welcoming environment. Everyone seems to be very kind there. And the admin's doing a great job, specifically Mr. DiMartino. The sixth grader mentioned that they really like the way that they approach this situation. So I was referring to Mr. DiMartino, Mrs. Bay, and Mr. Rogers. The fifth grader said it's amazing, very welcoming. Fourth grader said that they love how kind all the teachers and staff members are. They have plenty of clubs. They have an art club, makerspace, newspaper club, which actually Irondequoit, I just as newspaper visited. They have a garden club, student council, ski club, drama club, a builders club, as Dr. Johnson mentioned, and many others. They also really loved the new playground. One student said, "Oh my God, it's amazing." I feel like I had to include that. Mr. DiMartino implemented grade-wide assemblies to discuss new rules and updates, which is something that I believe he did at Dake as well. And it seemed like a fantastic idea because it makes sure that everyone is in the know. We suggested that they make note catchers for students who don't attend the assemblies because they're sick or something like that. Students expressed some concern over a no bag rule, which affected access to menstrual hygiene products. But this rule was developed with student input at one of the grade-wide assemblies, and it was brought back to students and parents, and they voted on school-based planning from 12 to 1 vote to keep it in place, and it's important to note that these were majority female votes. And Mr. DiMartino considered student and parent feedback. We highlighted the need for adequate supplies inside the bathrooms, and particularly at Rogers and similar buildings, like IHS as well, because sometimes it seems that those dispensers aren't always stocked. And Dr. Johnston mentioned that he will be addressing this issue with the building leaders. But overall, Mr. DiMartino, in making the snow bag rule to curb cell phone usage, he made sure to include everyone in this, the students, parents, teachers, and so it's also, students are allowed to go to the lockers to grab what they need to go to the bathrooms, so we feel like it was handled very maturely on Mr. DiMartino's end, and students also expressed difficulty to get to before school activities like band, orchestra, and choir. But it sounds like from our Zoom meeting that there are buses to get before school for those students, and Dr. Johnson is planning on reaching out to publicize this a little bit more to get the word out. Students also mentioned not having enough time for lunch and recess because it's squished into one period, but Mr. DiMartino put forth efforts to get picnic tables so that students can bring their lunch outside and eat, and we thought this was a fantastic solution. And we encourage other schools to do the same. But overall, Rogers seems to be a great place to be in. Students describe the community as, again, very welcoming, very kind. And while there have been a couple of issues, Mr. DiMartino and his team have done an amazing job at handling all of them. And this concludes the Rogers report.
All right. On to the November IHS report. Mary Grace Raj and Finn Schleifer, I hope I pronounced that correctly, were a part of a Section 5 Student Athlete Leadership Conference, leading the activities and events for the modified athletes, 3 of which, Mallory Penner, Shaylin Teitler, and Sawyer Smith, were from Dake alongside Coach Katrina Bean. Winter sports tryouts at IHS began this week. Among those were basketball, wrestling, cross-country ski, indoor track and field, bowling, and cheerleading. Post-high school planning night, as Dr. Johnson aforementioned, was last week. Students came from 5:30 to 8 p.m. for 3 sections covering a multitude of topics like art, athletics, testing, community college, SUNY schools, financial aid, admissions, military service, music, steps to college, and more. Also last week, several members from IHS's newspaper club, Irondequoit, took a field trip to Rogers Middle School to assist the almost 60 4th through 6th graders with their articles and that club. Today, Link Crew did their annual turkey hunt for the freshmen. This gave new students an opportunity to find a paper cutout turkey and earn a prize by redeeming it in the commons after classes ended at 2:55. The grand prizes were a real turkey and 2 pies. Next was this past Wednesday, the U.S. Armed Forces came to the Commons to speak with students about military options after high school. Those present were the U.S. Marines, U.S. Navy, United States Air Force, and the United States Army. On November 18th, Symphonic Band and Orchestra had their fall concert in the auditorium. If you'd like, you can see the replay on the district's YouTube channel. 30 IHS and Dake students met with Dr. Chisato Etta Marlene, a saxophone player with the Eastman School of Music, and learned how to better play saxophone, or some of the skills and tricks to use. 2,000 programs had a printer error for the Frozen play over the past weekend. 35 students from Triam were working on it, and alongside Debbie Chauvel-Velan, the printer administrator, or at Dake, they were able to get a resolution and get those out before the shows began. And then also, as Dr. Johnson aforementioned, the vending machines in IHS were a big hit this week. 2 new additions. I know it's something that I really wanted when I was one of the students in a focus group last year. It was one of the things that I suggested was vending machines outside of lunchrooms. So that concludes the November IHS report.
Thank you all for your report. It's always very appreciated, and I think an example of, the benefit. I'm fairly certain we had heard the vending machine feedback in previous student reports over the course of the past years. So that information is definitely heard by the board, by the administration, and goes a long way. And then I know that you guys all had some commitments last month for this typical time. I just wanted to say a big congratulations to Ms. Bosker and the entire staff of the school newspaper. Some very prestigious awards and recognition that came to our paper, and I know you all put in a lot of time, effort, and passion into it, and it's so great to see the recognition come through for you, so congratulations. As always, you are welcome to stay, but I also know as students you have a lot to do, so you are welcome to leave if you would like as well. But again, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item that we have on the agenda is approval of financial statements and treasurer's report. May I have the recommended resolution?
Be it resolved that the October 31st, 2024 financial statements and treasurer's report be accepted as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Wall, second. Mr. Shopful. Dr. Johnson.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Brennan, anything to add?
Just to emphasize what's on the summary provided to you, the district remains in a really good financial position. We've expended about 23% of our budget, which is right on par with prior year's budgets, and we've pulled in about 49% of our revenue, mainly through the tax levy. So therefore, we're in a really strong cash position right now, and we don't have any concerns at this point with the annual budget.
Anybody have any questions on the financial statements or treasury? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is personnel. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the personnel agenda dated November 21st, 2024, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Copeland, the second. Mr. Shopful. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, sir. I'll turn it over to Dr. Farrell.
To go through the agenda for tonight for approval, we have 3 teaching assistants for resignation, classified resignation of district registrar, security monitor, and classified retirement of a grounds equipment operator. We have change in employment status to teacher aides to teacher assistants, 1 cleaner to laborer, and then the following appointments: certified teacher, general education at the elementary level, certified teaching assistants, 2 full-time, and classified, we have a coordinator of media services and a secretary to the assistant principals at Dake specifically, and then at will per diem, a long-term substitute teacher, 2 long-term substitute teachers who are retirees, food service substitute, 4 lunch recess monitors, and a district accompanist. And then we have 9 volunteers for a recommendation for approval of extracurricular activities. And then we also have a recommendation for permanent civil service appointment, food service helper, and security worker. And then lastly, 1 notice of termination.
Are there any questions on the personnel?
I have one question. I don't know, maybe we can't even talk about it here, but just looking at these first 3 resignations, the longest service was less than a year, and then a month and 2 months. Do we have an idea of what caused them to go through the process to get hired and leave so quickly?
Yes, we do have some information about that.
That's not something we can discuss openly though, because it's personnel, is that?
Right, if
Okay.
there's something
Okay.
you would like to.
It's just, you know, I've said this before, it seems like there's an awful lot of back and forth. I hope we're tracking that so that we can, you know, especially, I know the, you know, contract is coming up, whatever we can do to try to retain employees is all.
I think, speaking broadly about, you know, some of the, that particular position there, it's a very competitive market right now, so, again, that's impacted us. You know, we've had discussions because people are making career changes and district changes, and I think what's important for us, you know, those teacher assistant positions can be very different based on your placement. And so, you know, one of the things that we're doing is making sure that as we go through the canvassing process, how can we help them to better, to more specifically understand those roles that they're applying for that specific position. So that's been some of it, the competitive nature regionally, and then sometimes people get in there and they just, you know, they have some experience in that, it just really isn't what they were looking for. So generally, that's what I would say at this point. Dr. Farrell, anything
Yes,
you
I
would
would
add to
agree
that?
with those, yes.
Yeah.
As long as we're trying to do something to work with that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But any questions specifically about these staff members, you know, please email us.
Right. No, I don't,
Yeah.
no, nothing specific, just as
Yeah.
long as that's not something that we're just letting go.
Absolutely not.
We're
Yeah,
taking the
no,
data that we're getting
definitely,
from the
yeah.
feedback, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
trying to do something with it,
And
that's
I
all.
know, Kevin, in past years, when Michelle was here, she did do a presentation where she tracked that and kind of,
Yeah.
not so much to, you know, she gave us an overview of some reasons why people left, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, so we do exit surveys,
Right.
when people leave, and so that's given us better insight. And again, one of those takeaways from this particular sector is really understanding what they're getting into in the classroom.
When they apply and interview, is it specific to the grade level, a specific program, anything like that, or is it
Right.
just, it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever the opening is at the time, unless there's a number of openings, right? And then maybe we work, maybe you can describe that sometimes.
Yeah,
Buildings will work
oftentimes
together.
the principals are the ones meeting with the teacher, with the candidates, and then describing what the role looks like, exactly what the placement might be, what grade level, and then the job duties, everything from hours to the schedule of the day and who they might be working with.
I know, you know, for full, you know, disclosure, my wife obviously is a TA, but she's in a special ed class, so I didn't know if that was specific. She knew she was going to a special ed class. I didn't know if all TAs knew what kind of classroom they were going to, what grade it is, what kind of, you know, role they'd be filling, or if it was just more general except for certain specified roles. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll just add the other piece is that our teacher assistants have been asking for more professional development, right? Professional learning. I know over the last number of years, Chrissy, we've done more to target that. There's a period of time where we had the position, the supportive position, I think the lead,
The skills coach.
the skills coach, I couldn't come up with a name, where, you know, through the COVID years, we weren't able to fill that, and that's a critical part of that as well. But if there's anything you want to add about some of that professional learning or.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've done a lot working through the Teaching Learning Center just to offer more specific professional learning for our teacher assistants, and making some of that more accessible asynchronously, just so that, you know, they don't have to attend an after-school session. It's something they could do, you know, if it's more amenable to them to do it like before or after work, or through their own home. So we've looked at not only the professional development that is created just particularly for teacher assistants, but how we're delivering it as well.
Right, and do more on conference days.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah.
Thanks, appreciate the clarification.
Yep.
Just one question. So, just a process question too, as you brought to our attention, working with the personnel department and our legal team about the appointments of our volunteers. And can you just speak to, and which I think is great, I think we started that last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was last year. Yeah.
So can you just speak to the process? Do they go, like, it's the same as a regular employee, right? Or not? I don't know. That's.
For volunteers for something like support of the Frozen musical, they submit their name, they go through a little bit of an application process and then board approval, but no fingerprinting.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other questions on personnel? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is extracurricular stipends. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the extracurricular stipends dated November 21st, 2024, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Wall, a second. Ms. Bohr? Dr. Johnson?
Dr. Farrell, anything to add on these?
Updated changes are in red. Again, further iterations will be coming as we continue to fill all of these spots, and we're just about there.
Are there any questions around extracurricular stipends? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is a waive of the second reading. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the second reading of the Personnel 2 agenda be waived.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Wall, second. Ms. Copeland? Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, Dr. Farrell? Anything to say about this?
It's just the agenda to waive the second reading.
Yeah.
Oh, let's get to the next one.
So-
Sorry. The next one, I'm sorry. I'm scrolling down through the copy when I was scrolling.
That was more a test.
Clearly passed. So my apologies.
Any questions or concerns around the waiving of the second reading? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is Personnel 2. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the additional personnel agenda dated November 21st, 2024, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Borneval, second. Ms. Bohr? Dr. Johnson?
Got it. Dr. Farrell, anything to add on this one? Okay.
Do we have any questions or concerns around the Personnel 2? Okay. With no questions, let's vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is technology update. Dr. Johnson.
So this is listed under business because Mr. Brennan supervises our technology director, so we're pleased to have with us Casey Wagner tonight, our director of technology. Mr. Brennan, would you like to introduce the presentation?
Yeah, so Casey's going to present to us some current areas of focus for the district as it relates to technology. I mean, I have the pleasure of working closely with Casey, and we could spend the entire night talking about all the different places that technology touches. But she really is kind of focused tonight on two areas around artificial intelligence, as well as a pilot with some different hardware from the district, which her TAC team is undertaking right now. So, Casey.
All right, thank you for having me tonight. I have my notes on my cell phone, you know, the tech director notes on cell phone, so we're gonna go with it. I'm also on a timer here. I've been given 10 minutes, we're gonna keep it under 10. All right, so again, these are two areas of focus. Obviously, we're doing quite a bit, but we're gonna start with the AI update. And just to level set everyone, we're gonna look at this definition from Teach AI around what is AI. So obviously it refers to programs or machines that simulate tasks that are typically required by human intelligence, such as recognizing pattern, making predictions, generating content. And what I did below is define generative AI, because really that blew onto the scene around 2020, and that has been where we started to pivot and dig in deeper. And that is where we're using large language models such as ChatGPT and others to create and generate content. All right, I have a typo tonight too. AI didn't help me out on that one. So we have two pillars, or a couple pillars that we really like to anchor ourselves into when we started this work. So kind of to give you a little history around AI, or actually later on I'll give you a history around AI, but again, level setting, we really think about AI literacy. And when we think about AI literacy, there are a couple things that we look at, right? How AI works, not just how to use it, but how it works. Number two, using AI responsibly, right? That responsible use of AI is so essential, especially as we continue to use it and dive into it. Recognizing social and ethical impact of using AI. Moving on into understanding AI risks and benefits. And so those are some of the things that we take a look at with AI literacy. And then again, our post-host is teaching with AI and then teaching about AI, okay? So I talked about risks and benefits, and so last year TAC really kind of unpacked this chart around what are some of those benefits. So on top, this is coming from Teach AI, an organization that leveraged a whole bunch of different really great organizations to kind of drive some of the foundational work that districts can do. And so on the top, you're going to walk across the potential benefits, but the counter is the potential risks, right? So whenever we think about this type of technology, we got to think about those things. And I'm just going to highlight a couple things, right? A great benefit is differentiation, right? It's an opportunity to create differentiated opportunities within the classroom, not only for the instructional, the teacher, but also for students to differentiate their own materials, right? But the problem with that is misinformation. AI will tell you something that sounds really good, but unless you really understand that content, it might have a hallucination, making things up. And if you don't know that content, you're going to believe it. And so really understand that misinformation, and then obviously academic dishonesty, and we addressed that this year in our code of conduct. It is defined in there. We're going to continue to develop student understanding of what academic dishonesty looks like for students. And then, you know, you can walk yourself across. I know you have access to this, but, you know, we kind of take a look at these as we develop some guidance and some development around AI. So one of the things that keeps coming up, though, is keeping that human in the loop. And that's kind of how we've defined ourselves as we look at guidance, right? At each and every one of these pitfalls is if you keep that human in the loop, you can help mitigate that risk. So when we think about Teach AI, why are we doing this work? There are some different statistics out there that show the why. We can't ignore it. We can't be the ostriches, right? When I think about the AI work that we do, oftentimes you think about the people that are picking it up as a continuum. There are people that are like, let's go AI. And there's people that are like, the Terminator's coming. All right, so you have both sides of this continuum. And so some of the research suggests that jobs in the advanced economy will be complemented or in extreme cases replaced by AI, 60%, right? And what I like to tell people, it's not AI that's going to take jobs. It's the people that know how to use AI, okay? And so it's a literacy we need to develop with our students. But in order to get there, we've got to develop that capacity with our teachers, right? And so there's some statistics that say 1 in 5 teachers feel prepared to teach AI. It's not a whole lot. So we have done some work over the past few years to help equip our teachers and our leadership with some capacity around AI. So Technology Advisory Committee has done a lot of work around this. Back in 2023-24, we began capacity building within that group, investigating some guidance, and then they drove a pillar product for AI tool, which is called Magic School AI. That is one of our approved AI resources that have both a teacher face and a student face, okay? In 2024-2025, this school year, Technology Advisory Committee is going to continue to help support guidance documents and guidance around AI, and then also drive some professional learning needs. If we think about professional learning, back in the summer of 2023, That's school summer before, leadership had some professional learning around AI. We used ChatGPT and talking about prompting and things like that. There was work in the department meetings, and then when there's curriculum writing, there's an introduction to AI. In 24-25, this school year, the library media specialists have really taken the bull by the horns. I've worked with our amazing director of humanities who oversees the librarians, and we worked together to develop their capacity so they can turnkey some of that at the superintendent's conference day. So there were some sessions around AI during the superintendent's conference day. And then this year I'm also partnering with our amazing director for the TLC and driving some AI work through the TLC. And then finally, policy and code of conduct. I've highlighted in our code of conduct around it, talking about academic dishonesty with the use of AI called out. And then their Erie 1 has provided districts with an example of a board policy, and I know that's some of the future work for the school year under Dr. Brown Farrell. So that was AI. I got 3 minutes, I got this. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is the pilot that we're doing around some hardware, and these are called interactive flat panels. These are the tools that you can use, and you can touch the screens, write on them, and so on and so forth. So why? Why now? Why are we piloting this hardware? Wireless projectors were installed throughout the district about 5 years ago. There was a 5-year plan that developed, and we're coming to the end of that. That means our oldest projectors are already getting to that point of their becoming obsolete. And so we're going to think about a replacement cycle. So what are we going to replace that with? So for the last couple of years, the DMRC, under the Coordinator of Media Services, have provided a survey out to staff. And in it, it asks, how do you feel about your classroom setups? And so a lot of people, when you look at that survey, you can see interactive, and that's just one survey, but something interactive, some sort of smart board, some sort of smart technology, something of that nature. So that started us going, do we need to look at this again? And so in 23-24, I worked with Chrissy Miga and James Brennan around finances around it, because these smart technologies used to be $3,000, $4,000 board. Now we're getting them with the stand included about $1,500 a board. So the pricing has gone down significantly. Additionally, where are we instructionally? We don't want them to be glorified projectors, right? So how are we going to use this instructionally? Once we talked about that, we worked with TAC, who then said, okay, let's dig into the research. What does the research say around these interactive flat panels? They developed a rubric for this pilot. We identified 13 ViewSonic boards. The reason why we went ViewSonic is because we've gone and they have trialed RecordX in some spaces. This is a RecordX and some ViewSonics. ViewSonics tend to have a little bit more life in them, and the costs were right. So we're trialing the ViewSonic boards. We're also getting student voice in that. But also as a counter to that, again, seeing if we can move past that interactive flat panel, interactive board as a glorified projector, we're going to try some 2-in-1 laptops. Okay, so you can have a projector with a 2-in-1 laptop, so you can write on that laptop and be mobile in the class, or you can have that interactive flat panel. And so the 2-in-1s will come after our December meeting with Dow to look at what products they have available in 2-in-1s, and we'll do those comparisons. TAC will review that information, they'll develop a threshold for success of the pilot, and we'll make a recommendation after that. 35 seconds left. So, does anybody have any questions for me?
I just appreciate the leadership on the AI piece. I work in the contact center industry, and it's all AI. Agent assist tools, generative AI, chatbots, and so forth. So I mean, it really is, from a professional level, something that many industries are eating, sleeping, breathing on a regular basis. So to be able to help our faculty and staff and our students prepare for that, really, we appreciate the effort there.
Just to compliment that, just in the medical field, everything's AI now, even like X-rays, and it's just they trained AI on hundreds of thousands of chest X-rays, right? And they can just the nuances that they know, and radiologists still need to read them, but it helps like areas of interest, I'll call it. You know, they can pull them up real quick and really have those people that are the experts dig into them. So again, I see it in that realm every day.
Legal as well, in my industry as well. And I really appreciate hearing all of the things you're saying. One of the things that they talked about at the NISPA conference that's really stuck with me is the idea that developing capacity in our students to live in an AI world is part of their free and appropriate education. Like, we are not preparing our students for the world unless we are engaging with AI. So this is just incredible. So thanks so much, Casey.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, I also was thinking about the conference and how they said that students that are keeping their jobs and not being replaced by AI are ones that know how to work with AI. So the fact that we're doing that AI literacy is super important, and I really appreciate that. I just had a question about the pilot. How many boards? Is it district? Is it one school? How are you starting that pilot?
So there's 13 boards throughout the district, and we've targeted different grade levels and different content areas. So we can see, hey, is this really something that's being leveraged by STEAM and not so much around humanities, or vice versa, grade level wise, where we
high school opposed to first grade?
Yep, so it's sprinkled throughout.
Okay, great, thank you.
I echo +1 to everything that's been said. One question that I did have is, we have a lot of focus on the academic dishonesty piece. What are we doing to address the equity piece? So you called out about biases, and actually in AI it's been proven there's a lot of racial bias in that as well. So what are we doing as a district to mitigate that and make sure that we're catching those kind of things as we're introducing more things and as our use of AI evolves?
Yeah. So that's part of the AI literacy, right? Understanding how AI is created. Why bias exists, why are prejudice perpetuated through AI is because of how they're trained, how the machines are trained. And so we need to help our students identify those biases through the literacy and understanding and responsible use. Does that help?
It does. And one other thing that I'm curious, so I was recently reading something and it was talking about leveraging AI for neurodivergent students or special needs students. And so this is not a question, more just I'm very curious to see how we can leverage that more in that space, as well as we also evolve our programming and curriculum for our special needs students to see how we can leverage that in there. We did the conference that Kate was referencing, we did a presentation where someone used AI to create an IEP. And it was very robust, very it was very concise, very great. So I'm just excited to see how we can use that in that space as well and maintain that equity.
Absolutely, and that one of the things within Magic School AI is IEP support and writing. And the reason why we chose AI Magic School is because of their data protections. So they will enter into a DPA, but they are very cognizant of scrubbing any data that shouldn't be in there. So when we are training teachers and building capacity, we're like, don't feed PII. That's one of the training pieces. But what other stop gaps are there? And one of the things that Magic School does is it says, wait a second, you just put PII, we're gonna scrub it, we're gonna pretend like it doesn't exist, delete it. So that's one of the protections that it does. The other pillar product we use is Copilot, which stays within our tenant. That's the Microsoft shop. And so our staff are able to use that as well. So we were very aware of how these tools work and the backgrounds are on it and protecting student data while also leveraging the power of AI.
I love the commitment to the governance. Thank you.
All right.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Clicker.
Great job.
All right, the next item we have on the agenda is business. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, I don't have a business update, but I do have one tied to facilities, so I can just jump right in on that. So we had our facilities meeting on Monday. We covered a lot of ground, provided some updates around our current capital projects that are going on. We talked a bit about energy performance contracts that we're engaging with CPL around creating an RFP for us, but it's really spent most of our time talking about the status and progress of the master plan, which we're working with our architects and engineers on. And so our CPL architect, Corey Hunsinger, provided some floor plans and models based on feedback that has occurred from the buildings as well as the survey, but also going all the way back to the RFP that CPL engaged in terms of what would possibly a learning commons look like. So it kind of provided some information around that, some diagrams. All the information I uploaded into our board docs for your review. But there's more information to come, obviously. This was just kind of a first step along the process.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Brennan on the facilities? Okay. Moving on. Next item we have on the agenda is instruction. Dr. Johnson.
Thanks so much. Mrs. Miga?
Yeah, so for tonight, no prepared update, but just want to take a moment to recognize again the unified team that was here earlier. Just the teachers do such a wonderful job with that, as well as the students. That's it.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is new business. And the first item we have under new business is therapy dog request. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the request for a therapy dog submitted by Colleen Bay be approved as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Bornabal, a second, Ms. Copeland. Dr. Johnson, anything you'd like to add here?
I guess I would just point out that it's, we put some thought and time into the process of approval for the therapy dogs that have come through. So I just want to acknowledge that. We had the opportunity to meet Gunner personally. This, I think it'll be our 6th dog. Chris, is that right? Six or seven. At this point, we do have therapy dogs at every level, not necessarily in every building, although the elementary schools, we do have some of the dogs that go between. They've been a tremendous asset. As I said before, they're self-initiated by the handlers. They invest all the time into the training, right, and preparation, thorough background check. Annually, they have to provide proof of the vaccinations and proof of the certification. So that's in place. It's all being handled through the Office of Instruction. So I want to say thanks to Chrissy, because that was an additional duty that they absorbed. But it's truly been just a magnificent asset for our buildings, students and staff. So appreciate the support with this.
Are there any questions around the therapy dog request?
Not about the particular request, but just a general question. Do we only have staff that has the therapy dogs, or do we have students that have them as well?
Only staff.
Could students request it?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Hasn't come up yet.
Honestly, it's something that we haven't crossed that bridge, but
they can do a service dog by law.
They can do a service dog, but a therapy dog would be a
I have
different
to
conversation.
I read the policy with Colleen. Actually, I got certified too, so I can bring them to the board of meetings.
Right.
We haven't got an idea to come over and sit with you. But yeah, that would be something to look at there.
Yeah, you know, it'd be, yeah, and again, it's looking at regulations, it would be obviously targeting the upper grade levels if they were to, because there's a responsibility here. You know, the handlers have to ensure that they're cared for during the school day, right? And then there's a coordination of that. You know, it's definitely something we can impact. But if we have students that are, maybe it's connected to a career pathway or something like that, I think it's a really interesting idea.
And then is it limited to dogs, or could you have other kind of pets as well?
Well, you know, again, it's something that as a district, you know, we've pioneered this for ourselves, so.
I'm not encouraging anyone to bring lizards or anything.
Right. We haven't been presented with the opportunity yet, but we've discussed different animals that could be, just, but, you know, so, yeah. Again, great idea.
How do you decide what buildings get therapy dogs?
So that's a great question. Again, it goes back to really, this is self-initiated by the handlers. So it's really, right now, it's dependent on the people that come forward. We have had conversations around how to make this something that's more universal and like in a stabilized way, and maybe less random to some of that. But right now it's based on that. There are services that we can contract with for therapy dogs, so we've discussed that. Ms. Meek, anything to add on that one?
Thank you. No, I was just gonna mention the services that
Okay.
we can look into.
Right, right.
So the group that we did it with, Rock Dog, who we did 9 weeks of training, they actually do offer it to schools. Like today, I had an email come that they needed someone else to go to Penfield High School. So there is, it's
Right.
called Rock Dog, that you can look at too. Yeah. I'd be happy to bring them to any school.
Any other questions on therapy dog?
So just one comment. I fully support this, but I'm going to abstain just because family.
Are you biased?
Two family members.
I did ask TJ, I go, who's the favorite son? He goes, clearly.
So, anyway, I fully support it.
I think we
Can't
all
wait
know
to see
that
more.
Mr. Bay was disappointed he didn't have any more family members that could come work in the So we started to train the dog. Okay. Being no more questions, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 6-0 with 1 abstention. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is field trip request. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the field trip request for performing arts students to travel to Callicoon, New York from January 10th to January 12th, 2025 be approved as presented.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Day, second. Ms. Wall? Dr. Johnson?
So this has become something that students are excited for. I think this is the second year that we've done it. Mr. Rugg puts it together. So the students get to travel down there together around theater arts. Really an immersive experience around the skills and the applications there. As you go through, you can scan through and look at all the logistics. You can look at the funding. The ratios are in place as far as the supervision. So outside of that, if there's any questions, happy to field those, but it's been a great addition. Just want to say thank you to Mr. Rugg for spearheading this.
Any questions around the field trip request? Okay, seeing none, let's vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is RFP award for copier services. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the West Irondequoit Central School District approves the RFP issued in 2024 for printing services to Toshiba Business Solutions.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Wall, second. Ms. Copeland? Dr. Johnson?
Sure. I'm going to turn over to Mr. Brennan, but before I do, I just want to note a couple of things through the RFP process, and this one specifically. I think James has done a great job with his team in developing, as you can see, the criteria, really clear criteria to make some decisive decisions based on really the different aspects of the services, everything from cost to, maintenance and support and some of those other things. I just want to thank you guys for the thought that went into this, because it really is a huge impact for the district, the copying. So, Mr. Brennan?
Thanks, Dr. Johnson, for that. Yeah, it was a great team effort. We had a committee that had a really diverse constituency, from folks from admin, from tech, from clerical, as well as teachers as well. Involved in this committee, we set forth with what we consider to be the most important aspects of it. Traditionally, especially since you're dealing with taxpayer money, the cost is a very important factor, so that gets weighted more heavily. But then we also identified what are some of the things that we want to get out of this. We're on a 4-year replacement cycle for our copiers, so our copiers are coming to end of life through their leases. We lease everything through BOCES to leverage our 78% BOCES aid ratio on these pieces of equipment. And even better now, with some of the proposals we received, we're actually going to be able to have the service incorporated within those proposals as well, and also receive BOCES aid on that as well. We've been traditionally a Xerox school district, although in the last few years we have introduced Toshiba as a way of piloting some different machines out there. And so the RFP itself actually looked at a variety of different types of companies. So we had Toshiba, which is the recommended vendor. We brought in Xerox again, and HIG brought in some products that included HP and Canon. And so kind of looking at the feedback from the committee, you see the composite scores from those folks that participated in it. We're excited to make a recommendation to the board for enter into an RFP with Toshiba and use their products, again, through BOCES. Take advantage of those bids through BOCES and saves the district some money.
Do we have any questions on the printing services RFP?
Thanks for the process change. Just under, which is always a tough one, because as we know, we rely heavily on our printers / copiers or multifunctional things, which is always a tough one, is the service model one, which, you know, they all ranked, what I would say, they all ranked in it, but it's always a tough one. So do we put, I'll say guardrails in the contract where we, like, they have to be able to fix it or they replace it in a certain amount of time? Because I know in the past we've heard from staff that when the main copier in a building goes down, it can be very frustrating and really disruptive to the academic environment when they need it.
Correct. Yeah, and then when those occur mostly is when we're getting towards the end of life.
Okay.
And we have, I mean, they are built into the contract where ultimately we can't ask for replacement if once they go through so many iterations of trying to fix it.
Okay.
And it's to their advantage too, because we stop calling them.
Yeah, no, and I understand. I'm just wondering, so there is that in there.
Yeah.
That's important because, you know, you can have one that can be a problem when you have a chance to work with them to say, hey, maybe just a whole, what we call forklift replacement, right? Like,
Yeah. One thing that made Toshiba stand out a little bit more, and they were all pretty strong around their service models, we felt overall. I mean, but we know obviously as machines get older, they do break down more. Is they have a great model where they build in quarterly reports with us. So we can actually see the performance of these machines. We can look at downtimes. So it's not a mystery. So it's not all of a sudden that we're hearing from, Briarwood that their machine's been down, 3 out of the last 4 weeks or something, where we can actually track that data and be a little proactive.
Some of those interactive dashboards and getting those quarterly reviews are important. And then I'm going to add, I don't know if you know this, but in the RFP, did we have a number of copies we think we do a year? I'm sure we have a number.
They did for their pricing. There's more, I could dig that out, but it was around a monthly piece.
You wonder what that number is.
That's how we
buy a lot of fine paper, that's why I'm just wondering.
That was part of the cost basis, because there's a per print cost on top of the lease itself.
Okay.
So this might be nitpicking, and I don't mean to be.
Sure.
But I just want to make sure I'm not missing something.
Mm-hmm.
Was this out of 100 points or 90? Or was there a piece of criteria that was missing? Like, am I doing the math wrong?
It was out of 90 points, my total.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I'm missing something
No,
here, or I'm just not reading it right.
We ended up playing around with the idea that how much the cost we didn't want cost necessarily to overweigh all the other ones. So we played back and forth whether to go at 50% or 40%. Or 40 points, so we decided to lower it a little bit because we want the quality of the pieces to stand almost up to the cost. But yeah, I didn't change that on the bottom total.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I missed one.
Nope.
Not missing something and reading it. Okay. We use Toshiba at work as well, and I think that they're great. Like, I was going to report on how they are able on the back end to pull up any issues going on, and they are very responsive. So I wasn't surprised to see them come in.
The other interesting, I mean, not that hopefully this doesn't happen anytime soon, but with those, we had been piloting some of the Toshiba machines, and during the supply chain disruptions post-COVID, we ran into some real problems around getting some of the Xerox toners. We were our vendor was excellent in terms of helping us, like, we can get them from here, steal them from here, we can order them off of here. Cheap was never a problem because they're all produced domestically. There's more of the stuff coming from overseas, so that also kind of looked at we were kind of looking at that supply management piece. The accessibility of supplies was considered important too for that. Hi.
When are we looking to get these new copiers and where? So like throughout all buildings or?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
well, it's a total fleet refresh. So it's all buildings. We've had meetings in advance. Of course, I told them we can't do anything until it's actually approved. We had a meeting at 4 o'clock today, where we looked at a variety of documents, but they're ready to roll with BOCES. And like a lot of things right now, we're all really excited with the 2-week break in December. I mean, people are excited for different reasons for that. for things like this, it's like, yes, there's no one in the building, so we can actually, that's our target, is to at least start refreshing, if not do a complete refresh with minimal disruptions on what's going on in the buildings. Take full advantage of that 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, let's vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is the Veterans Partial Tax Exemption Preliminary Discussion. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. So I was able to share with you a very comprehensive overview of the exemptions that are available to school districts that was provided by our attorneys. And so hopefully you had a chance to review that, but we felt that it would be helpful tonight to kind of summarize that and condense it down to really where the plan of discussion has been heading into the budget cycle, budget planning for next year. So I've asked Mr. Brennan to put together presentation to do that. Then I shared with you in advance some of the questions that we'll present just for discussion and making some decisions on how the board would like to proceed and some of the things that you may need to do so. So with that, Mr. Brennan?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Joseph, for the opportunity to set the stage for the discussion. So, as Dr. Johnson indicated, we've received a lot of information regarding this particular exemption from a variety of sources, including our attorneys. I've tried to pare it down to kind of some what I consider the important bullet points for it. So first of all, what this is, it allows the alternative veterans tax exemption. It gives school districts the option to apply the veterans tax exemption, which had been previously available to towns, but not school districts, and now it can be applied to school property taxes. What it does is it reduces the assessed value of that qualifying individual's private primary residence before the tax rate is applied to their home to actually calculate what their tax bill is. So those that would qualify for this are any veterans, spouse of a veteran, or an unmarried surviving spouse of a veteran may apply for the exemption. So not everybody doesn't they actually have to go through an application process that is done through the town. And just to note in general, I think it's always important to note with any kind of exemption, anytime that there is a tax exemption, that results in a shift of taxes from the exempted properties to those without the exemption. Particular to this exemption itself, these are the 3 base levels of benefits. So it's for those who first have served during war. They could receive a 15% exemption off their assessed home value to a maximum of $12,000. Those that served also what's considered a combat zone could receive an additional exemption of 10% or another $8,000. And then for those veterans who have qualified as a disabled veteran, depending on the level of their disability, could qualify for an up to 50% reduction or an additional $40,000. So the percent is applied, but it is capped by that dollar amount in the right column. And again, these all apply to the assessed home value. Important in terms of timing for all of this, to apply a base exemption, if we're going to go forward with a veterans tax exemption, the board has to hold a public hearing and then adopt a resolution accepting this exemption prior to March 1st. March 1st is important because the town needs that information before they finalize their tax rolls. So that's why March 1st matters. It's really about the taxing jurisdictions finalizing tax rolls, both at the town and the county level ultimately. On the prior slide, those are the base levels, but those base levels can change based on board action. So they can be raised or lowered. That dollar amount can change. So it could be half as much, $6,000 versus $12,000, or it can be double. So those values can change. It can be, there are charts that show how the different values are. What happens in that case is the board would first need to adopt the base level and then hold a separate hearing and subsequent resolution to adjust those after that base level. So there's an important sequence there. Those can be done in the same venue. So you do two separate hearings and the resolution. In the future, as with any exemption, this veterans exemption can be repealed by board resolution. I would imagine, I'd want to research this, but I imagine it would require another hearing as well, just like when it was adopted in the first place. And then just to give you a little information regarding exemptions, the district does have an exemption on the books, predates all of us, and it is the low income senior and disabled exemption that we currently have.
James, you don't have to say, could you just supply us with and I know we have it, but I can't remember I'll say the levels for that exemption, because it's been a while too.
Oh, for the income levels?
Yeah, the income levels for the seniors / disabled.
I can provide that to Dr. Johnson. Those levels haven't changed
in years.
Yeah, so the numbers of people who qualify for it is dwindling over time. It's just their normal income benefits, either from Social Security or whatever, continues to increase. And then these are some questions to consider regarding the exemptions in terms of next steps. Obviously, one question is whether or not the board would like to hold a hearing on the veterans tax exemption this year. Is there any additional information that would support your consideration? In fact, it's germane to tonight. In fact, in an earlier meeting and communication, a community survey was mentioned. Should we issue one? And then are there other exemptions you'd like to consider this year? Really the only other one out there beyond the one we currently offer and the veterans tax exemption is the one tied to volunteer fire and the ambulance exemption.
So, two questions. Are community members able to apply for multiple exemptions? So they can apply for both the veterans exemption and then the low-income senior, disabled, and firefighter, however?
I believe so, but I can check. I mean, I know from the perspective of we have people that are on the low-income senior disabled list that also receive a STAR exemption. So in that case, yes. I would check with the town to see if there's any overlap among those properties, or they have to choose one or the other.
And then the volunteer fire and ambulance, are those separate exemptions?
No, it's the same exemption. They call it the or, because it could keep it come from the ambulance or the volunteer fire, but it's a single exemption.
And so with that exemption, I remember we discussed it in the past, does that have the same criteria where I think it gave some ideal funding levels and the board can make adjustments to that too, do you know? Again, you can funnel that to Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, I can provide the Dr. Johnson. I remember it was like a smaller percent value, like I believe it was 10%, and whether it's finite or not, I'll need to look that up.
Yeah, if we, like you could look at that, and if it does, is it 10% and a dollar amount, or is it just 10%? Because as we know, as the reassessments go up, 10% can be a lot more now than like a house. The district used to be, the average house was 100, we would say 120. We used to say 100,000.
Yeah.
Then I went to 120 to 125. Now the average house is like 180. So
the question was just around the volunteer fire. Does it have like defined maximum levels?
Right.
kind of like the slide he shows up here with the benefit levels, exemption, and then the dollar amounts right there, and if they have that.
That piece, yeah.
Does that make sense?
We can take it up.
And then.
So no, go ahead, I didn't know.
So for the, if, a lot of this has been about the veterans, but for the volunteer fires, I'll say, or ambulance, is that a March 1st deadline also?
Yes.
Okay, so they're all like kind of March 1st, whatever we look at.
It's all tied to when those tax rolls go into a
Yeah.
final stage, then they get set.
Yes, okay. When they set the final assessment.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
At the town level, do the veterans have to apply for it at the town level?
Yes.
Do we have any data about how many West Irondequoit have asked for it from the town?
Yes. We have that data in the past. I
Okay.
can request it again, know what the current levels are.
I would love that, yeah.
It said in the handout that we got prior to the meeting, somewhere in here, that it's approximately $31 for average home if the exemption is given to veterans. Did we ever get a dollar amount, not to bring this back, but for when we talked about the whole pilot with I-Square, did we ever get a dollar amount of how much that affects the other taxpayers in the district?
It doesn't.
It doesn't?
It doesn't, I mean, we get our, I mean, it does eventually on that clawback piece, and once it's fully assessed, but right now, it's a separate source of revenue in terms of the pilot piece.
So I remember part of the discussion at one point was if that didn't, if we renegotiated or if it didn't go through, that could save taxpayers in the other taxpayers in the district money. I didn't know if it had an effect on them now.
Right now, remember, if you remember like the data that I think Joe was sharing,
Right.
like we're kind of near that break-even part.
Gotcha.
But we could calculate what that shift would be in the future on there.
So the 31, I'm not sure where the $31 figure comes from in
I
the
think it came from the
literature.
last time we did a hearing.
Okay, so is it, what would be involved in getting an updated figure for?
The
what
first
the
piece
impact
would be reaching out to the assessor's office to get current values in terms of who's applied for it, at what levels.
Sure.
They can provide me that raw data dump and I can do a calculation.
And so the assessment would assume, or your calculation would assume that it's the same people who would apply for the school tax that are applying for the town tax at this point.
I think if they applied for the
Yeah.
town,
If they-
and we vote to have it, they get it.
They get it.
They don't have to
Yeah,
reapply
they don't
just
have to
for
apply
schools.
twice.
They don't, oh, okay, that's interesting.
I think that's
Yeah.
the case, like, that would be my understanding.
I think it goes back to like, kind of what the first concept is, that by the board adopting that alternate veterans tax exemption, it gives the option to apply that veterans tax exemption, which they applied
I
to.
understand,
Applied
okay.
for to their school taxes.
Okay.
Question?
But it's certainly the case that not all veterans who could qualify for the exemption have applied for it at this point.
No, they haven't.
Probably not.
Just in terms of, I've looked at that data in the past and just some anecdotal data around the number of veterans that are out there, it's a different number.
Sure.
So, whether it's a matter of they choose not to apply for it,
Mhm.
or they're just not aware of it,
Right.
or I don't know, but.
Aaron, could you also work with James and supply us, well, I know the town has it, at what level did they do it at, and what percentages, and the county also? Did they do all, the 3 levels that you showed, did they only, because I think you, if I remember you
Yeah, I think
correctly.
we had it.
I think we had that one time. Again, this is great, we're getting this all together in like one piece,
Sure.
so.
Yeah, we could find out whether or not they went on the base level or not.
Right.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
That's the typical process people do, but there are options out there.
And are the veterans exemption and the fire exemption two completely separate processes?
Yeah.
So it would be separate public hearings, separate votes?
Yes.
This is great, thank you for the time to, and I guess the last thing, so we Can you just go over the options that the board has again? I know we talked about this in August. There's a couple options, right?
Yeah, I mean, so one option would be, the board doesn't have to really do anything.
Right.
They don't, there's no requirement to hold a hearing
Each year.
or take action. It can be status quo. If the board wants to consider offering the exemption, then a hearing must be held. And then once the hearing is held, then the board still, by having the hearing, doesn't necessarily commit the board to offering the exemption.
Has to pass.
But there is a board resolution to offer the hearing.
So then that resolution would have to pass just like any one other resolution.
And does that have to be done yearly following that? Like, let's say, okay.
No, so like, for example, the limited income senior disabling, the board has never taken
Oh, yeah,
action on
okay.
it, it's been there, it's a legacy program.
Okay.
The board could take action through it to eliminate it or
Right.
change some of those income levels.
Okay.
Once a public hearing is held, is the board obligated to vote on whether to implement the exemption or not?
I don't believe so.
No.
Yeah, I don't think so.
A resolution would have to be introduced.
I'm just saying after the public hearing, right? So
Right.
let's say we have the public hearing and get heavy one way or heavy the other. And if a bunch of people come and say we don't want it, does the board have to decide to have an official vote on it or just decide that we're not gonna take it up based on what we heard at the public hearing?
I think you're right, man. I think the public hearings, if the board wanted to get some type of more information.
Yeah, correct, yeah. Get it more than fact-finding information gathering. Right.
But I'll just say to the board, they talk about a survey in here. We've done them in the past. Sometimes, I mean, surveys are tough. Sometimes we've struggled at times to get responses, as you know. But there was a question in that I think we don't have to have an answer tonight, but that we should consider maybe how we want to do that. I think with some more of the information coming back, that might help us, I think. I guess, James, for you, I know it doesn't matter, but in the timing of things, I'll say from the business office, because, you know, budget's all year round, but once we hit January, like, that's when it really kicks up in the business office, right? Like, you're consistently gathering the budget data, so.
But the good questions you're asking right now, that's all, for my world, that's the legwork, and that's the information that would be needed to decide. But once that work is completed, then it's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we're not, I want the information, but I would be willing to wait a little bit if it meant, because we're over. You know what I mean?
That's why we're bringing it up now, so that we can get ahead of that before we hit that surge.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So do we have to make any decisions tonight about this?
Well, some direction more,
Okay.
you know, so the questions are great, we're writing those down, we'll get more information, that was a big part of this. You know, we talk about options, the final option I would introduce is that number 4. Like, because we consider one doesn't necessarily mean we have to consider the other. They were introduced as options at different times. So that's a conversation we'll need direction on, right? The survey doesn't have to be decided tonight, but that was brought up within the community and suggested. So that is a question for us to address, because that would take time to put together and then to issue, and then collate the results and get them back to you. I think that's it. James, anything else?
No, I mean, I think the questions gets at number 2, right? And number 2 could inform whether or not it's necessary.
Right.
I think that while we're gathering data on the veterans exemption, I'd like to see data on the other exemption as well.
I was wondering, did the town adopt the fire? I can't remember now.
I believe they did. Yeah, they
So-
did.
So there's probably some data out there of how many people applied for that.
No, they did.
Yeah, I was saying, we can get data for both of them.
Yeah, I'm saying.
That's,
And I know you just told me this, but I can't remember. Is it the volunteer fire
I believe
or
it's-
ambulance, or is it volunteer fire, and I'll say and or ambulance? Is it 2 separate, or you vote on it all?
It's one exemption.
Okay, thanks.
I used to get it when I was a volunteer at St. Paul.
From the town.
from the town.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Minimal, it was like $200.
So, I
Yeah.
think, go ahead.
Oh, no, I think that sounds like the next step is to get the information about what the impact is gonna be.
So,
But I agree that I don't think a survey would be particularly helpful. You know, since we would have to have a public hearing, that's the opportunity to hear from the public if we wanted to go forward, but surveys are tricky.
Do we have to do a public hearing or a survey, or does it have to be a?
It has to be a public
Definitely.
hearing.
Yeah, I agree, I don't think a survey is necessary.
Okay.
I guess the question, but, so I agree that surveys are tricky, but the community suggested the idea of the survey? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was suggested,
By some of our guests.
suggested tonight even,
Yeah.
using Gates as an example.
So even if it's tricky, if the community is asking for it, I think that we should consider it.
So,
Is
I
one
would
person
say,
asking or the
Aaron, can you
community?
give us a ballpark of what a survey, and be realistic, like time for the district and then cost? Because there's a cost to the survey. Are we gonna mail it? Are we gonna do online? Because those are two different things. If we mail it to each household, there's, what, 11,000 households or something, like 12,000 households in the district?
Yeah, we can do it. We would likely do a postcard, you know, with a link that they could type out, and maybe a QR code, right? Use the website, social media, all that kind of stuff. So there would be a cost around the mailing. You know, surveys are one of those things, it's like, it all depends on the respondents, you know? And we have had, it's been challenging for us to get, depending on the topic, so.
I kind of agree though, if they're saying that that's something that they want, and they say right in here, the last public hearing, it had 67 people. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot. I think you have better opportunity, a deeper reach by sending them to the households. You know, I mean, not that, obviously we'd still have to do the public hearing. I think we just have a better opportunity to get
I don't think that's
feedback.
necessarily true, because I think you're gonna have bias in who's responding to the surveys.
The advice who came to the public hearing too.
Right.
Right.
So, can I just make a suggestion? So I look at this like backwards plan, March 1st, right? So then the board needs time, and we need to plan if we were gonna have a public hearing, or we need more information. So, Aaron, would it be unrealistic that the board could have that information, say, by our second meeting in December, so a month? And if that's not good, let me know, or just after the first of the year. That gives us time to digest it, we have another chance to talk about it, and that gives us our February time if we want to have a hearing / more discussion, and then be able to vote by the deadline. I'm just going backwards, but I don't want to hurt the
Yeah.
district, so.
Again, I think we can get to this data pretty quickly, but some of this will be based on the response.
From the town.
Yes.
Once I get the data, the turnaround for me is pretty quick.
Right, so I think we can get it within a month, you know,
And if you can't, just let us know
get it back
that
to you.
the data is coming slow.
Yeah, and we'll feed you, whatever we get, we'll get it to you as soon as we get it. And then hopefully by the January workshop, you know, you could be making some decisions. We can put a tentative date on the calendar for a hearing,
Is there
you know, whichever way you go.
Is there a legal requirement for a duration of notice we need to give for a public hearing?
Yep,
Yeah.
there is. Yeah, so.
Sure, board clerk will.
Just thinking the way when John is talking about
Well, I'm
moving
saying,
backwards,
that's why I
like we
said,
have to
I
give
was
a
looking at like
45-day
February,
notice.
Right, that's
every
just-
time we give us
Yeah,
time to do
that's
all
fine,
that. like,
and then we
can't
would be able to
able
do it by March.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's why I was looking at, I appreciate the information. I know it's an ask, but I think it's important. Then we can still talk about the survey. Once we get that information, I think it will be helpful, and then we circle back and what we want to do with the survey.
Yeah, and you know, another idea would be to reach out to Gates and get a sample of what their survey was. That'd be helpful. We can do that.
And then, did we, I know you did this, but Gates is the only town that did it, right?
There was
It's hard to
two,
configure, that's-
right, but I'm not necessarily in the county. Were they?
Right, well, I think the other was outside the county.
Right. Because the other thing about this gate survey would show us like the number of respondents, some
That'd be
different, some different data there for them that might be helpful for you in consideration.
Great,
Yep.
Thanks for the time and consideration.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the summary, for the opportunity to talk through this. There's only 2 of us on the board now that have gone through this process in the past, so I think it's great to have a refresher, so to speak.
Right.
Are there any other questions for this discussion right now? Okay, thank you everybody for your participation now. The next item on the agenda is impartial officer appointment. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
The full resolution can be found in board docs.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Guy, second. Ms. Copeland? Dr. Johnson?
Yeah. Jenny, can you remind me what's different about this year? You explained it to me the other day.
Well, this.
Yeah. Oh, the hearing officer? You're on the vote personnel. What again? Sorry, I was looking down. So, sorry, I was down the agenda a little bit. So, yeah, so this was, we talked about this, and this is to appoint a hearing officer for the stage 4 of a DASA appeal. So this is the final stage to you. And this would appoint the officer who would handle that on your behalf and then issue the report for that. And then the next stage after this would be to the Commissioner of Education.
Are there any questions on the appointment? Okay, let's vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the West Irondequoit Central School District approves the consent agenda, which includes I-2 through I-6.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Borneval, second. Mr. Schaffel. Just real quick, consent agenda is an opportunity for the board to make more efficient use of meeting time. We authorize the use of the consent agenda as part of a meeting agenda. This allows for one motion to approve multiple items, and items are identified as such on the agenda. I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda, and we'll ask the board members if anyone wishes to have discussion or clarification on any specific items within the consent agenda. After that discussion, we'll vote on the agenda. In addition, a board member may request to have a specific line item removed from the consent agenda in order to vote on that motion separately. So that said, the items on this evening's consent agenda are recommendations of the Committee on Special Education, surplus furniture at IHS, revised appointment of the 24-25 Committee on Special Education and Preschool Committee on Special Education, vote personnel, and a donation. Are there any items on the consent agenda that anyone would like to discuss? Any items on the consent agenda that anyone would like to remove and vote on separately? Okay, then let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Moving on in the agenda, our next items are liaison reports, and we will start with our liaison reports for the Monroe County School Boards Association. The first report is our legislative committee, which is attended by Ms. Copeland, Ms. Wall, and myself. I'd be happy to give an update unless anybody.
Go ahead.
So really the focus in the legislative committee over the course of the last couple months has been updating of the committee's position paper. Sarah Pelucio, who has been the chair for legislative committee for the last couple of years, spearheaded that process. We had a 4 or 5 hour call about 3 or 4 weeks ago to go through each of the position papers individually. Those were voted on and passed by the executive committee at a meeting last evening. Additionally, we have the legislative breakfast, which is scheduled in February, and School Boards Association is going to take a little bit different approach to that this year. Prior to the legislative breakfast, there's going to be 2 individual advocacy sessions. They're going to be held on December 9th, I believe. One is at 9 a.m., one is at 3 p.m. And basically the ask is of our legislators that are going to be attending the breakfast to send members of their offices to these advocacy sessions so that Monroe County School Boards Association and our members have the opportunity to basically prep the staff members as to the topics that will be most pertinent or most prominent during the legislative breakfast. This way they can bring those back to the various legislators so that they're a little bit more prepared to interact with the crowd at the committee, at the legislative breakfast, which I think is great because it does, I think at times for those of us that have participated, we found that maybe they either catch them off guard or we get some pretty canned responses to some of the information that we provide. So I think it's a great opportunity to give them a little more time to prepare. Some best practices from the last legislative breakfast are going to be carried forward. We're going to feature student voice again. So there's a number of students from various school districts that will be participating. There was some very positive feedback from the legislators that attended last year on the power of that in the conversation. So that really has been the focus of the legislative committee's efforts over the course of the last several weeks. Anything I missed, Ms. Wall and Ms. Copeland? All right. Next is district operations, which used to be known as labor relations, and that is Mr. Vey and myself. We had the most recent district operations meeting yesterday. The focus of the district operations meeting was the New York State mandate for zero-emission vehicles in busing. Representatives of NYS, E&G, and RG&E, and NYSERDA all presented on the not just the process, but some of the resources available in that process, and then some of the funding resources as well. So they really spent a lot of time talking about like fleet electrification plans, and to say it is a hot topic within Monroe County School Boards Association would be a bit of an understatement. I was actually surprised that they opened it up for questions at the end because I didn't see anybody wearing protective gear before they asked that question.
I'm glad we don't have a huge bus fleet. That's all I'm going to say.
What'd you say?
So I'm glad we don't have a huge bus fleet. This is going to be challenging for some of our larger partners out there that have large fleets. And I mean, you can probably hear it in your group, Aaron, that it's a big budget item that they have to.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pieces in that. Right now, they're saying that manufacturing capacity for electric buses is about 1,500 buses a year. The New York State mandate will require, beginning in 2027, that any new buses purchased are zero-emission buses. And New York State as a whole will require somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 45,000 buses, which that current pace would take 30 years for manufacturers to catch up on. And 27 begins the must replace with zero emission, but I think by 2030 the expectation is that fleets are 100% zero emission. So there really is. And then the challenges that came up in yesterday's meeting were, they kind of talked about the ideal, right? Here's what the process looks like, here's how it starts, here's all the steps in the process, but at no point in discussing the ideal did they talk about like current timelines, like from when a school first reaches out to their energy provider to how long it takes to complete the fleet electrification plan, and there was definitely some small talk going on at the tables at the meeting, but that will also be a big piece of advocacy that is discussed in the legislative breakfast, because it's going to have a very profound impact on a number of school districts, especially locally.
I attended a meeting with the Urban League Rochester yesterday and their Commission on Racial and Structural Equity, and for their education cart. That was one of the, we met with Adrian Hale, and that was one of the things that we talked about were the bus requirements. And after that presentation, the determination that there's really no district in or town in Monroe County that has even the grid capacity to support what would be required to maintain the buses, even through the winter.
And then there's other challenges that capital purchases such as school buses need to be approved by the communities via a vote. Churchville, for example, had it on the ballot for the last election in May. It was turned down by the community. So if there's a mandate to purchase electric buses, but there's also a mandate that the districts need to approve it, and the districts aren't approving it, there's definitely a breakdown in the process there. So Regent Hale was actually at the meeting yesterday as well.
And we did get a shout out at the meeting as well for the Blue Ribbon Commission work that we were selected to do too. So it was a very exciting time for West Rockaway.
Yeah, he's a handful, that's for sure. So definitely lots more to come on the zero emissions. I walked out with the same feelings that Mr. Guy had. So we're lucky not to have a very large fleet of buses to worry about. Next item on the agenda is information exchange, and that is Ms. Borneval and myself. The last information exchange meeting was 2 weeks ago. And the topics were regionalization and the Blue Ribbon Commission. Both very interesting topics. To start with the Blue Ribbon Commission, a lot of focus on the portrait of graduate. And it's great to know that our district has really gotten in front of that in terms of those discussions, a lot of the research and a lot of the legwork and effort associated with that as we go through defining what the ideal Irondequoit graduate looks like. One of the big pieces that the Blue Ribbon Commission is ultimately moving towards is a single diploma, whereas right now there's a number of different diplomas out there that in different pathways to graduation. A single diploma will eliminate some of the challenges out there where the state says, yes, this individual gets a diploma, but districts have local requirements that aren't met, so they hold back that diploma until those local requirements are met. That would be replaced with a single diploma that would have various seals that students could work towards an attainment. Like right now, we have the seal of civic readiness or bilingual literacy, and so that ultimately we would move to a state where you'd kind of have the standard diploma, and then any additional achievements above and beyond that standard diploma would be demonstrated by attainment of seals. So they shared a timeline on that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's also a 27, 28 target for finalizing the requirements for that single diploma, and then 29, 30 is the target first year for awarding of that diploma, I think.
Yes.
It's
very new.
And there's a lot in flux,
It was pretty hot off
it
the presses, being shared at the information committee. I am working on a presentation that I will bring to you guys in the very near future, because there are a lot of questions around that timeline, that it's a pretty aggressive timeline in some ways. And so we want to make sure I have all the information as best as we know to this point for that presentation. So more to come.
We had the board president's meeting last Wednesday, and the conversation during the pre-meeting was that in 1 week we had Blue Ribbon Commission, regionalization, and the following week we have buses. So let's take all of the really, really fun topics right now and combine them into 1 month. So aggressive timeline with a lot of contingencies in both respects. Second piece they covered was regionalization, which is a focus of the state in terms of trying to identify resources that maybe some schools can afford or don't have the population to bring on themselves, but perhaps can avail themselves from other districts. You know, one of the topics they talked about was like advanced placement. That if the district doesn't have enough demand for certain advanced placement courses, but another district has been offering that and has the resources, is there an opportunity to share those resources between districts or find ways to get students to participate in other districts? Both the Blue Ribbon Commission and the regionalization presentations were made by Dan White, the superintendent for BOCES 1, and Tom Putnam, superintendent for BOCES 2. And from a regionalization standpoint, a lot of the legwork is being done by the BOCES organizations, where they're really beginning to collect the information from the superintendents of each of the member districts to get an inventory of what all these services are, and then BOCES will begin to perhaps identify where some of the tall poles are in terms of opportunity for regionalization, and then get that back to the state. Another situation where there's some very aggressive timelines for collection of data and decision making. Not a ton of confidence in the ability to meet those timelines, but I think there'll be a lot more information coming on regionalization over the course of the next several months or year as BOCES continues to collect this data and identify what the opportunity looks like.
So that was going to be one of my questions is, do we have an opportunity to proactively start identifying where we might be able to partner with other districts on different things, on gaps that we have in our own district? But it sounds like you said BOCES is handling all that for all of.
That's the initial phase where BOCES is doing all the data collection. There will be some focus groups that are being done regionally. They'll be meeting with BOCES leadership and superintendents, and so there's going to be a lot of levels once the data is collected to determine how that data is analyzed and used, and ultimately what the decisions are made in terms of how and what programming, or even not just programming. I mean, it could be resources, it could be supplies, it could be any number of things. So. Any questions on that? All of the information on the position papers from legislative committee, the presentations on busing, all of the links around the presentations on busing, and the presentations on the Blue Ribbon Commission and regionalization are available on the Monroe County School Boards Association website. New board members should have gotten an email from MCSBA with their login. A lot of great information in there, so if you haven't logged in, take a few minutes to do so. And if you have need any additional info on those, it can be found on that website. All right, our next liaison reports are school community groups, and we'll start with Helmer Nature Center, and that is Ms. Borneval and Mr. Schaffel.
Well, Mr. Schaffel and I, we had a wonderful meeting probably 4 weeks ago now at the Helmer Nature Center. We were able to tour the space, which was really great to me because other than the baseball field, I've never really gotten in there. So it was really nice. Karen was wonderful. She really had a nice meeting for us. We reviewed the staffing and past events and upcoming events, some site improvement projects that are going on.
Saw the animals.
We did. That was wonderful. We were able to go in and see the animals and owl. I mean, what else? Like, it was amazing.
Turtles.
The crow was a little,
noisy,
whatever.
Yeah.
It was a little much. That wasn't enjoyable, but
We used the drills, the push drills. We drilled through stuff.
yeah, we did.
Which was a project that the students were doing. It was right at the tail end of a field trips cycle.
Yeah.
So we did a couple of the activities. It was a good visit. And even, I know you said you'd never really been, other than the baseball fields, I grew up going there. and even having grown up going there and going and getting some of the almost behind the scenes from the staff, I mean, it was awesome even for me, you know, who's been going there my whole life and has always really loved that place, so.
It's a really
We already decided
special
we're
place.
gonna be the liaisons next year too.
Yes, oh, sorry, we did decide that. Hope we don't have to vote on that. But it really is such a special place for our town, and it was so nice to also see how we support and offer educational opportunities to other districts outside of ours, and all the traction that gets in, and it was a really nice visit, and I am proud to say that that's in our town. It's really nice.
And I'll just say from an outsider's view, you know, the number of programs and the marketing of those programs, you know, just seems to be growing.
Yeah.
You know, the communications that are coming out via social media about some of these great activities, and even more exciting is seeing that so many of these activities are selling out. I mean, there really is a high demand for a lot of these things, so it's great to see the community availing themselves of those services as well.
And it's great to see that in a tech world, kids are getting outside.
Yes.
Being close to nature. So
Yes.
Anybody ever sees the Owl Prowl? Give it a go. It's a lot of fun.
Oh,
it was canceled or rescheduled when I was gonna go.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun. They bring little recorders out and play owl sounds, and they answer. So it's really neat. Yeah.
But I think they're really excited because I think that there was several years in the past where they didn't hear the owls, but this previous time, Karen explained that they did, and so like that was really exciting, and it's like sparking a lot of energy around that. So I definitely ran home and told my daughter, I'm like, we gotta go on the Owl Prowl, and I can't wait. Like I was so excited. Yeah, it's really good.
Anything else on Helm?
I mean, we could really go on, but.
All right, the next item is PTSA, and that is Ms. Bonneval and Ms. Wall.
Yes, so, sorry, because there's two things. I want to talk about PASSN and I want to talk about PTSA. So, for the PTSA meeting, it was a great meeting. We had building reps from each of the schools, just sharing what's going on in their schools. We talked about spirit wear sale that just went on in the district, so that was really fruitful. We had our pie sale, which was also very successful, so we will start distributing those pies out this weekend. There was a lot of conversation around event planning, so especially in our K-3 schools where the principals are shared, how we can better coordinate that so that they don't have to jump between events, that we could make it so that they could be a part of the programming for both schools and not have to pick and choose. So we'll look to work on that later in the year. For PASSN, so this past Monday, they had a workshop with one of the occupational therapists in the district. Hold on, let me pull it up because it was such great information. They shared resources and tools. It was a sensory workshop.
Yes, supporting students with sensory needs.
So lots of, they talked about CBT or EFT, so some new terms that I just learned. But it was really cool that we get to have that space. I've attended quite a few PASSN meetings for my own, just as a parent. So it's really exciting that we have that space where parents can come and talk about their concerns and speak freely about some of their challenges or successes that they experience with their kids and in the district as well. So I don't think I missed anything. That's all.
Great. Thank you for that update. The next update is West Irondequoit Foundation, including the Alumni Association, and that is Ms. Boer and Mr. Bell.
Yeah, I can start and let me know if I missed anything.
I saw you taking copious notes.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
I'll fill in the blanks. How's that?
Sounds good. This was my first meeting that I was able to attend because of me being sick at the beginning of the year. And it was a really great meeting. They were talking about their first annual alumni bash for all alumni that's going to be happening. And they bought shirts and hats that they're hoping that they're going to try to sell at that. Which is great. They also spent a lot of time discussing how they're going to support the DAKE DC field trip and what that should look like for the students. It was really, it was great to see how they were ensuring that what they're doing aligned with their mission. And they really had conversations about that, like, is this really supporting students? Is this something that the district isn't in the budget? And so it was nice to see how thoughtful they were with what they're doing. They also spent a little bit of time talking about the scholarship that they give, and maybe changing that in the future, and realigning that, and maybe creating a new one for first generation college students. That wouldn't necessarily be tied to being an alumni, but would be through the foundation. And then they're talking about maybe moving the cornhole tournament out of the fall and to the spring-ish. But the problem is the space where they usually have it can't accommodate them at that time. So there's a little work into how that's going to be. They're hoping that the Alumni Bash will be their fall event, and their cornhole event will be like in the spring. So they're looking at other venues.
Yeah, I just remind anybody on the last Saturday of the month, come on down to Holey's. It's open to all alumni and friends, and it's going to be a good time. Might be some guest trivia. And got a new one I need to research there tonight.
Do you have to have a ticket for that?
So you can buy it at the door, but we appreciate it if you could buy in advance. So it's been on social media. You can just click on the link and it's good to go. So we're working on that. So that would be.
Order your shirts and your hats by Saturday.
No, they'll have them there.
They'll have them there.
Yeah.
They'll have them there.
Bring money
We don't
for
sell-
merch,
They
that's
want
what I was
a
gonna
number
say.
of them. We're hoping we sell out, but also they're not. They don't have first annual, so it's going to be like the hats. They're going to be able to continue with. So.
I need to update our social media post for our class page. Thank you.
It'll be exciting. So.
Okay, thank you. Next we have the Teacher Learning Center, and that is Ms. Bohr and Ms. Wall.
We actually have not had a meeting. Our next meeting is on December 5th.
Yes.
So we'll have an update at the time.
Thank you. We have Health and Safety, and that is Ms. Copeland and Mr. Shaw.
We've also not had a meeting and have our next meeting on December 5th.
Okay. And then finally for our community groups, we have Policy, and that is Ms. Copeland, Mr. Shopful, and Ms. Wall.
So we had a great meeting with and during that time we, oh my gosh, keep me honest. So we reviewed
The BOCES one,
Yes.
style guide.
We were looking at, oh my god.
So it's year 2 of reviewing the board policies with a diversity, equity, and inclusion focus. So we looked at the West Irondequoit DEI policy, the New York Culturally Responsive Framework, and the Monroe One Style Guide for Inclusive Language, which are underlie the DEI lens tool that we use for reviewing the policies. So we looked at those, and then we looked at the lens tool and made some tweaks to that. And then over the coming year, we'll be hopefully reviewing all of the 4,000, 5,000, and 6,000 policies with that lens in mind. Exactly what she said.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is Board Liaison Reports Schools. And we will start with Irondequoit High School and Ms. Wall.
Yes, so lots of exciting things. So as was mentioned earlier today, we have the teachers conference coming up, or conference day coming up. The school counselors actually organized a post-high school planning event, so we just talked about that earlier as well. On November 13th, they had several sessions from NCAA to learning about trades, and families had several choices of presentations in each of their 3 sessions. November 21st is the Great American Smokeout. So IHS is partnering with Uplift Irondequoit to spread the word about the dangers of smoking with a focus on vaping. And they have posted new signage in their bathrooms and a message going out to all families around vaping. And then on November 25th, all students will engage in a building-wide community circles event where they will talk about what it means to belong at IHS and what they can do to ensure that everyone feels a sense of belonging.
Thank you. Next we have Dake, that is me. First and foremost, big congratulations to the amazing artists at Dake and the fantastic play they put on last weekend of Frozen Junior. I was thrilled to be able to have gone on Friday, and huge credit to them. There was a small technical glitch that actually delayed the play for about 35 minutes, and the kids handled it flawlessly. Came right back on stage after the glitch that required them to like move intermission a few songs earlier and then just go straight through after that.
Wow. That's hard to
And
do.
you never would have known that that's not how it was planned. So kids did such a great job dealing with that, but the performance itself was absolutely astounding. And as you heard earlier, I think 3 of the 4 shows were all but sold out, which is always great to see. Student activity nights at Dake were a huge success. They've averaged about 120 students or so at each night, and students are already asking when the next ones are going to be held. Big props to the PTSA for sponsoring the events and for all of the parents and staff chaperones who helped out. Extracurricular clubs have been really busy this month. Their Natural Helpers sponsored a Unity Day and World Kindness Day. The Student Council sponsored a Hawaiian Spirit Week, a Halloween Spirit Week, excuse me, and Theme Day Fridays during the month of November. The History Club is planning for the 8th grade field trip and will be holding class meetings to talk about their itineraries and expectations. After the class meeting, students will participate in an assembly sponsored by the English department. Students will also view a short drama performance of 12 Angry Jurors presented by East Ridge Drama Club. I actually think I saw that on social media today. The 8th grade is reading 12 Angry Men, so the dovetailed very well with East Ridge. Update about Frozen, again, absolutely fantastic. And then this week, 7th and 8th grade orchestra students attended a field trip to Nazareth University to take part in a master class being run by Grammy Award-winning violinist Maxim Vengerov. So a big shout out to the music department for providing that awesome opportunity to our students. Our fax teacher, Taylor Lanham, has been providing students with real-world learning experiences. She had financial advisors from Evans Bank come in to visit classes as guest speakers and had 8th graders go through the interviewing process for an entry-level job position. Many staff members helped out with that simulation. And the Culture and Climate Club is sponsoring a Friendsgiving for staff this week, and the building is celebrating an Attitude of Gratitude Day on Monday. Classes will participate in gratitude activities, and staff will get a treat from administrators to share our gratitude and appreciation for all they do. And then she wishes everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. All right, next we have Rogers and Ms. Bora.
Yes, I got an update from Mr. DiMartino, and he highlighted a few things. The Builders Club had a donation drive, and they collected over 700 food items that they're donating to the Irondequoit food cupboard, and it was a huge undertaking for the school community, and they were very generous with their contributions. Peer mediators are their student leaders in the building, and they're actively supporting resolving conflicts and promoting the goals of self-management and emotional regulation, and their efforts are making a huge positive impact on the school environment, which is really awesome to see kids leading. And then Rogers Professional Development Series. Recently, the series has brought together over 20 teachers from various content areas to share the best practices in vocabulary instruction. And these practices are now being integrated into everyday classroom conversations and writing with students using this new vocabulary, which is great. And they'd like to extend a thank you to Chrissy Miga and Kim Crystal for their exceptional guidance in their sessions on reading. So they send a thank you.
Thank you. And now Irondequoit with Ms. Copeland.
So I had the opportunity to take a building tour at Irondequoit on October 30th. I saw on the calendar they had their Halloween obstacle course, and I really wanted to see it. So Mr. Mellon generously arranged for me to come see it, and then we spontaneously pivoted to making that a building tour. So I really appreciate the teachers that let me pop into their that let us pop into their classrooms, and Mrs. Avalone, the lead teacher, for taking over when Mr. Zwallen had some other things to do. So I got to visit one of the A11 classrooms, some of the 4th grade classrooms. I popped in on a saxophone lesson. It's a wonderful building. It's just warm and welcoming. It's really great to see how all the students and teachers recognize each other in the hallways, and everyone's seen and known there. I got to let's see, so there were Helmer Nature Center field trips going on that day, so I got to see the students coming and going. I got to meet with Mrs. Palish, the library media specialist, as they're gearing up for the library renovation as part of the RISE project. So I got to see the before. They had all the plans laid out, and we're talking about some of the gearing up that they need to do, talking about not just what it's going to look like, but really what they're doing in the meantime to have library classes and all of the other things that they do with that space. So really just a lot of work going on. I really appreciate that. The librarian as well as the facilities folks who were there having that conversation. I'm really grateful that I got to see the before. I can't wait to see the after, and I know how much work is going to go in between there. So that was it was a really wonderful visit. And the Halloween obstacle course was amazing. It is a very cool thing. It really, I don't know how many of you have seen it, but it's an obstacle course that they set up for all of the PE classes. So one gym has the obstacle course, the other gym has a set up with the PTSAs. They do some crafts. There was a donut eating event. It's a really cool opportunity for families to get in while their students are there, and a really appreciated tradition at Irondequoit doing this obstacle course. A couple of other notes that I received from Mr. Zwallen this week. They've recently wrapped up their fall intervention data reviews and are working in meetings with grade level teams to adjust and refine the RTI program so that students are receiving targeted interventions designed to meet their strengths and needs across the building. Again, recognizing the PTSA for their work on the Halloween obstacle course, as well as a recent family movie night, and they have an upcoming book fair and the mid-year concert.
Thank you. And next, Briarwood Colebrook with Mr. Shaw.
Yeah, so I met with Ms. Batten and Ms. DeWitt's on the 22nd of October. It was Ms. DeWitt's second day as the principal. So she comes with a load of experience, so I'm sure she handled it just fine. But we didn't exactly tour the school. I requested to meet at Colebrook because that's where I went, and I haven't been there since I was in 2nd grade. At the time I went there, 3rd grade was in Irondequoit. So I wanted to see what the school has changed. It's so much different than when I went there. Better for sure. So, but we walked the school, walked the halls a little bit. Not a full tour, like I said, it was just her 2nd day. Some of the things that they've had going on since then, the teachers completed intervention data reviews to ensure students are getting tiered instruction and support based on their individualized needs. Students and staff, I don't have the date on when this was, they were treated to a presentation of the Frozen Junior musical, and they were appreciative of that. And then today, the Briarwood PTSA had their annual breakfast, which was a success, was very well attended. Those are my updates.
All right, and now Brookview Seneca with Ms. Bourne.
Yeah, Mrs. Spitz sent me an email with some updates. She said that it's just been a really busy time at the schools. Brookview had their open house a couple weeks ago. Seneca had theirs tonight. So it was great to welcome families in and show all of the great stuff that's going on. Both events were partnered with the PTSA, who sponsored and held the Scholastic Fair afterwards, and also had some donuts and cider. So she just really wanted to give a shout out to that coordination from the PTSA. She also wanted to note that Seneca is hosting a food drive And that food will be donated to the Irondequoit Food Cupboard, and that so far they're off to a great start, so she's really happy and proud about that. And then once Thanksgiving passes, I am going to do a visit at Seneca. So my children all went to Brookview, and it dawned on me that I've never been inside Seneca. So we got chatting about that, and we're going to do our visit together at Seneca.
Great. Thank you. And finally, Westwood South Lawn with Mr. Beck.
Yeah, so we were working on a date this past month, and due to a work commitment, I had to change it with Mr. Shirley. So we will have our school visit in December. So he's throwing a few dates. I just got to check what date works best.
All right. Next item we have on the agenda is future meetings. Ms. Weston, do we have any future meetings?
Yes, we have a study session on Thursday, December 5th at 6 p.m. at Dake. And then we will have an audit committee followed by a business meeting on Thursday, December 19th. Audit committee will be at 6 and the meeting will be at 7 here at district office.
Great, thank you. Now we have executive session. Is there a reason to go to executive session?
Yes, there is, to discuss the employment history of a particular person or persons.
Okay. That said, can we have a motion to adjourn into executive session? Ms. Wall, second, Ms. Copeland. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We'll take a quick 5-minute break while we get things cleaned up and people head out. Big thank you to everybody on the board. A lot of information presented today.
Carry on, Rich. You're a good man.
A lot of people had to put in a lot of time to get everything to come together. Big personnel agendas, facility updates, everything. So thank you everybody for all the time invested in that, and hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving.